All right, let's talk about how to find the midpoint. And again, we can find the midpoint in 1D, we can find the midpoint in 2D, we can even find the midpoint in 3D, no big deal. So in a one-dimensional sense, so I have a number line, and I got a point at 2, and I got another point at 14. The midpoint is the point in the middle. Now, that might sound silly or obvious, but it's just the middle point. It's the point that also creates two congruent segments. So say that mathematically. Let's say I had a line segment AB and C, line segment AB, and C is the midpoint. What can you say using some solid notation? Well, if C is the midpoint of AB, then AC equals length AC equals length CB, which is to say then that line segment AC is congruent to line segment CB. Okay, it's in the middle. So what's in the middle of 2 and 14? Think about it, think about it, think about it. 8. Boom. 8. It's 6 away from 14 and it's 6 away from 2. It's literally in the middle. Now, how do you find it? I don't know. You can count. You could say, okay, how many steps? How many steps did you have to take to go from 2 to 14? Well, you had to take 12 steps. So don't take 12 steps. Take 6 steps. So go to 2 and go take 6 steps over from 2 and you get to 8. Or you can take 6 steps that way from 14. 6 steps down is 8. 6 steps up. However you want to do it. You know what else you can do? You can just find the average. The average point. I mean, the average of two numbers is the point in the middle. So you could do 2 plus 14, and you could divide it by 2 if you liked that better. 2 plus 14 is 16, divided by 2, boom, 8. All those things are doing the exact same thing. I'm kind of a counter. I look at the distance between and I just go halfway. So I said, well, from 2 to 14 is 12. Let's just go 6. And I usually start at the small number and work my way up 6 rather than going down. But it doesn't matter. You can just find the average. So let's carry some of this over and see how would this work in 2 dimensions. Okay, now we're on a coordinate grid. Let's take the point 3, 2, and let's go way over here to, I don't know, what do you think that looks like? 11, 10. Okay, 11, 10. Where's the middle? I don't know. Boom, right there. Doesn't that red look like it's in the middle? It's the midpoint of that line segment. Okay, again, you can do whatever you want. I don't even care. There's 1,000 different ways to think about this. I like this way because these numbers are the same type of numbers we looked at when we tried to find the distance between this point and this point. How far over do you go? From 3 to 11, you go 8 over. How far up do you go from 2 to 10? You go 8 up. Oh, that's kind of nice. They're both 8 in this case. So if you want to go to the middle, just go 4 over and 4 up. Just do half of that and half of that. So if you start at 3 and you go 4 over, you got all the way to 7. If you're at 2 and you go 4 up, you got to 6. So 7, 6 then is the midpoint of 3, 2, and 11, 10. Remember, these numbers are how far you walked. They're not the answer. The answer is not 8, 8. It's how you just want to go halfway of that. You like this method? Fine. Just find the average. Find the average x value. 11 plus 3 and divide it by 2. 14 over 2 is 7. That was your x's. And then your y's. 10 plus 2 over 2. 12 over 2 is 6. 7, 6. Maybe you like that better. I don't know. Doesn't matter to me at all. We need to be able to find the midpoint. The midpoint is the middle. It's also the average point. And in an x and a y case, it's just the average x and the average y. We can even do it in 3 dimensions. We can do x, y, and z. It'd still just be the middle x, the middle y, and the middle z. We can do this as many times as you want. The midpoint is just the middle, right? If you looked up some formula, midpoint, it's going to tell you to do something like this. Is it fine? Sure, there's nothing wrong with it. But you don't need it to tell you that. You know how to find the middle of two numbers. You know how to find the average of two numbers. You know that it's add them together and divide by 2. I don't like this. You're not going to see it on any of my keys. I'm going to do something like this because this is the type of problem I think you build with some knowledge. You know, you don't need even a grid. You can just look at the coordinates and find the middle of 3 and 11. Boom, 7. It's 4 away from both. The middle of 2 and 10, 6. It happens to also be 4 away from both. All right, let's do another problem. Let's go here. Ooh, let's do this one. How about -2, -7, and let's go to 5. Oh, that's pretty high up. 5, 11. Okay. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. Because maybe I want to know the distance too, and I want to know the midpoint. So I'm going to need those numbers, I guess, eventually. So -2 all the way to 5. That's going 7 that way. -7, oh my goodness, -7 all the way up to 11, that's 18. So if I want to find the midpoint, I just want to go halfway. So halfway of 7 is 3.5. If you go 3.5 over from -2, you get it 1.5. 1.5. Does that look like 1.5? I think it's pretty solid. Okay, and then y value, I don't want to go 18 up, I just want to go 9 up. 9 up from -7 is 2. Boom. I say my graph's pretty good. That looks like 1.5, 2, and I found the midpoint. You don't like that way? Fine, do the other way. 5 plus -2 divided by 2. 3 over 2, 1.5. 11 and -7. 11 plus -7 over 2. 11 plus -7 is 4. 4 over 2 is 2. 1.5. All right, these are my x's and these are my y's. 1.5, 2. Midpoint. But again, it's still just the middle. It is just the middle. I went 3.5 over and 9 up. If I went another 3.5 over and 9 up, I'd get to the same thing. Again, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you're going to get decimals. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Finding the middle. Now, there are some other problems we can do. What if, instead of giving you the endpoints, what if I was tricky and I actually gave you one of the endpoints and I gave you the midpoint? What if this was A and this was C and C was the midpoint of A and B? And you're like, oh, well, how can I do that one? Well, check this out. What if you knew you went 5 over and 8 up? How would you find the other one? Well, if C's in the middle, then way up here is the other one. Well, all you have to do is go 5 over again and 8 up again. And then you have to find the other endpoint. See? That's in the middle. So if you have an endpoint and a midpoint, just do the same thing again. So whatever this coordinate is, take away 5, add 8, boom, you got the other endpoint. So there's situations like that. And then there are situations where, you're doing some kind of algebra stuff. If I tell you something's in the middle and I tell you these two things, I give you some line segment. And instead of the segment addition postulate, first part plus second part equals total, I could actually just tell you that, this is 3x and this is 5x minus 20. Okay? And if I tell you that this is the midpoint, then what do you know? Well, you always know. Even if this wasn't the middle, you know that 3x plus 5x minus 20 equals the total, but you don't know the total. But if you know it's the midpoint, then you know that those two things are equal in length, meaning those segments are congruent, and then you can solve. That'd be 20 equals 2x, 10 equals x, and then if you plug that back in, you could show that this guy is 30, this guy's 30. Again, you can find certain things if you know it's a midpoint. Again, just backtracking. If you know something's here and something's here, this is a good review. If you don't know B is in the middle, you still know that AB plus BC equals AC. That was the segment addition postulate. First part plus second part equals total, for sure. But if you know B's in the middle, like in this case, then you know that the two segments themselves are equal, so set them equal. This is always true. Doesn't have to be in the midpoint. Okay, so you're going to do stuff like that, but hopefully this was a good start to kind of help you out on finding midpoints. And again, sometimes they're decimals, sometimes they're numbers. You can use the formula if you want. It is just telling you what you already know, that the midpoint is the middle, which is then the average point.